Canada's leaders face tariff crisis, steel industry, and economy on the line. Canada is currently navigating one of the most challenging economic moments in recent history as escalating trade tensions with its largest trading partner put immense pressure on critical industries, especially the steel sector. Since Mark Carney took office as Prime Minister following the snap federal election in April 2025, he has been confronted with the urgent task of safeguarding the nation's economy amid mounting tariffs and unpredictable trade policies. The steel industry, vital not only for manufacturing but also infrastructure and national security, is facing significant setbacks that threaten jobs and economic stability. Trade relations between Canada and the United States have long been deeply intertwined, with goods and services flowing freely across the border for decades. However, this seamless economic relationship has been disrupted dramatically. Since the election of the previous U.S. administration, Canada's exports southward have plummeted, with vital sectors such as automotive manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism bearing the brunt of these tensions. The steel industry, in particular, has experienced a sharp 30% decline in production in recent months, signaling a potential crisis that demands swift government action. In response to these challenges, Prime Minister Carney's government has implemented strategic measures designed to protect Canadian steel manufacturers from unfair foreign competition. One of the major issues facing the sector is the practice of dumping, where countries without trade agreements with Canada, such as China and Turkey, flood the Canadian market with cheap steel products. This tactic undercuts local producers, forcing them to compete with artificially low prices that jeopardize their survival. To counteract this, the government introduced tariff rate quotas, which set limits on steel imports before significantly higher tariff supply, aiming to shield domestic producers and stabilize the market. As the self-imposed deadline of August 1st looms, a date set by U.S. leadership threatening to impose crippling 35% tariffs on all Canadian goods, Carney has been candid with Canadians, managing expectations and warning that a completely tariff-free trade agreement is increasingly unlikely. Drawing parallels with recent deals such as the Canada-UK trade agreement, which still includes tariffs on many goods, Carney emphasizes the necessity of adjusting to a new reality where partial tariffs may become the norm. This pragmatic stance prepares Canadians and businesses for the challenges ahead, while negotiations continue behind the scenes. The response from provincial leaders has been varied, but united in urgency. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has pushed hard for economic diversification, calling for Canada to reduce its reliance on the U.S. market by seeking new international partners and expanding internal trade. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has acknowledged the harsh reality that zero tariffs may not be achievable across all sectors anytime soon. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has taken a different approach, urging Canadians to support domestic products as a way to hit back economically against U.S. tariffs. Yet, the idea of fully Canadian-made vehicles remains complex given the global nature of automotive supply chains, which depend heavily on international parts and manufacturing. A significant sticking point in ongoing trade discussions is Canada's supply management system, particularly for dairy and poultry products. Quebec Premier François Legault has taken a firm stance, refusing to consider negotiating away this protection, citing its importance to Quebec's agricultural economy. This insistence complicates efforts to finalize a broader trade deal, as supply management has historically been a contentious topic in Canada's trade negotiations, illustrating the delicate balancing act between protecting domestic interests and opening markets. This ongoing trade uncertainty has fueled a growing consensus among Canadian leaders about the necessity to build a more self-reliant economy. Mark Carney and the premiers are working together to strengthen internal capacity by investing in domestic industries and diversifying export markets beyond the U.S. This strategy aims to reduce Canada's vulnerability to the whims of unpredictable U.S. trade policies, which in the past have caused significant disruptions and economic hardship. Central to this strategy is the protection and revitalization of the steel industry. The government has implemented procurement policies that prioritize Canadian steel for public infrastructure projects, helping to sustain local production and preserve jobs. The steel sector is not just an economic asset. It supports critical industries such as construction, transportation, and defense. By bolstering this industry, Canada seeks to maintain a resilient economic backbone capable of weathering global trade storms. Political volatility in both countries adds layers of complexity. With the U.S. gearing up for midterm elections, domestic political agendas may further destabilize trade policies, making negotiations more challenging. Despite these external pressures, Canadian federal and provincial governments have signaled a united front, emphasizing collaboration and coordinated strategies to protect Canadian economic interests and minimize fallout from tariff disputes. Beyond steel, other key sectors, including automotive, agriculture, and technology, are grappling with the fallout from tariffs and disrupted supply chains. These challenges threaten to affect employment, consumer prices, and overall economic growth across Canada, highlighting the urgency for comprehensive government responses that balance immediate relief with long-term economic planning. Prime Minister Carney's leadership during this crisis is crucial. He is navigating the complex terrain by combining defensive measures, such as tariffs and domestic procurement, with diplomatic engagement and forward-thinking economic policies. Success will depend on his ability to foster cooperation across provinces, sustain public trust, and manage international relations with a pragmatic yet firm approach. In conclusion, Canada's current tariff crisis is more than a trade dispute. It is a test of the country's economic resilience and adaptability. The steel industry struggles serve as a microcosm of broader vulnerabilities within Canada's economy. Through decisive leadership, provincial collaboration, and strategic investment in domestic capacity, Canada is positioning itself to reduce external dependencies and build a stronger, more self-sufficient future. The stakes are high as Canadians watch closely. The outcomes of these trade negotiations and protective measures will reverberate across industries and communities nationwide. Canada's leaders face the challenge head-on, fully aware that the decisions they make today will shape the country's economic health, global competitiveness, and prosperity for generations to come.